Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic, and welcome to this very special deep woo-woo episode entitled Cosmic Agency with my dear friend GOSIA. You can find her work at swaru.org, and you can find her on YouTube on two different channels. The Spanish one here, Agencia Cósmica, and also here at Cosmic Agency. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And let's welcome GOSIA back to the show. GOSIA, bienvenue. Comment vas-tu?
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, everybody in the chat waiting. Sorry for a little delay, but here we are.
Here we are. Exactly. I'm excited to have this conversation. I have to say, GOSIA, every time you're on the show, I get emails and comments after, oh my God, JC, have GOSIA back. You guys have a great, riff together. You have great conversations and you make us think. And I'm like, yes, that's what we want. We want to think together as humans. Of course, GOSIA, this whole show today, the impetus of it, of course, you and I have talked about this a few times back and forth, but for the audience members too, I've done a couple of shows here on BeyondMystic where we're talking about the fact that we're moving into this age of Aquarius, and necessarily speaking, all of the structures from the past era are crumbling before us now. We're seeing it in the political theater, in the religious theater, in the schooling systems, Hollywood. All of this is crumbling right now. And the big question for a lot of our audience members is like, okay, well, what do we do? How do we as humans come together and create the systems that we need that actually work for us, as opposed to this parasitical force that is siphoning off all of our energies? And here's the rub. For a lot of people, and I hear the conversations and I share a lot of my comments also in different forums, people are suggesting how perhaps we can fix the old banking system, perhaps how we can fix the political system. And every time I look at that, I'm like, well, wait a second. Is there a fixing to be had in all of these systems, or were they originally designed to enslave us and there's no fixing? Perhaps what humans need to think about now is how do we create organic systems or mechanisms of governance, of distribution of assets, of education for our kids that are made and designed for us as humans. Now, you've done amazing work on this already. I'm just going to bring up your YouTube channel. Guys, if you haven't seen this, GOSIA's been talking about this with the Taigenin team now for a couple of years. But in this last particular video 2 weeks ago, Holistic Society, questions from Athena and Yazhi. Guys, go watch that if you haven't seen that. That's kind of like a basis for the conversation here today. And the objective today is not to give you a top-down version of what this holistic or holographic society might look like, but to have a conversation about what we need and what we want as humans, as opposed to what the Carl Schwab and the reset guys want, because that's the old system trying to control this new era that humanity is facing. So before we get into that, though, GOSIA, you haven't been on the show for a while, and there's quite a few new subscribers here on my channel, and I wanted to point them to swaru.org. And this team of Taigetin members here has grown quite a bit since you and I started doing these shows. So I thought we could take maybe a 5-10 minutes here to kind of break down who all of these amazing people are, who left the scene, who came on the scene, because for some of our audience members who know about you, they're not sure about yet who all of these Taigenin members are. So perhaps we can spend a few minutes here explaining that. The floor is yours, Go. So let's start there.
Okay. Well, it's not that the team actually expanded. Most of these people, except for Athena Svaru, have been here for a very long time. It's just that we didn't have a picture updated. Right. The picture was different on a website, and just now we decided to publish this image. And the reason for that is because actually most of these people that you see are actually them. That's real photos of them. Some of these photos are a bit modified, but most of them, that's them. That's why we included that image on the website. But they have been here since the very beginning that I started talking about them. And the only new addition, and not so new anymore, is Athena Svaru. She came on the scene, so to speak, and last June, and now she's in charge of this communication. She's the one, the third on the right.
Okay, so let me bring my cursor on the screen for the audience members, and maybe if you want to just, as I'm pointing to them, name who they are, and also explain why there's a little bit of modification in the pictures in terms of the censorship with, well, the organizations that wish to have this remain secret. So explain that a little bit to the audience, and then I'll point to each of them, and you can tell us who they are.
Okay, I'm looking at what you're pointing.
Okay, well, first explain why the modification, and then I'll start pointing at the screen.
most of the modification are because of the filters that Athena Svaru needs to apply for these photos to pass through the Federation censorship, because actually the photos are not allowed to pass, especially photos of the ships, of anything happening outside, anything of that kind. And Athena found the way to filter, to pass those photos, to leak those photos through, but she needs to sometimes apply certain filters and layers, one layer on top of the other, so that the Federation AI that censors and monitors what goes through doesn't pick up on that. So with some people it was easier to pass the photo. With some people more modification needed to be done, and also in some cases there is a bit of a protection of the identity applied as well. So let's go to the
So
people.
I'm gonna go here on my cursor. I'm at the
That's
left side of the
Naishara.
screen.
Naishara, yes. Naishara, that's all I can say. Yeah, we have talked to her a few times, and she's actually a counselor. She's Taygeta's counselor.
Okay.
Like advisor. So behind her there is Ragel. He's a Hashmalim, one of the Hashmalim team, and Hashmalims are a Taygetan special forces, so to speak. So if there is a special operation.
Gosha, I might have lost you. You seem to be frozen there on the screen. Folks, let's just see. I think perhaps give me a 5x5 if you guys can still hear me. I'm not sure if maybe we've just been yanked from YouTube. So I'm just looking at the live chat now. Give me a 5x5 if I am still on. Still waiting for a 5x5, guys. I think perhaps we have lost this. Okay, 5x5. Okay, so I'm still here. Let me see what we can do about getting Gosha back on the screen. So hold on, folks. We had a very strong connection, so curious indeed. You appear to have lost on. Back to StreamYard. Let's see if we can salvage this, folks. Okay, I can hear GC, not Gosha. Yeah, Gosha is now off the screen. And let's wait a little bit here. So while I do that, while you're there, what's interesting here at swaru.org, guys, if you don't already know, if you want to read the transcripts, Gosha is going to explain here in a minute or two how this communication happens between her team and the Taygetan teams here. And there's a reflection of that already in raw form data in terms of the transcripts here. So you can find the transcripts here at swaru.org. Of course, if you're part of the Spanish-speaking community, you can find Gosha here at Agencia Cosmica. And of course, on the English side of things here at Cosmic Agencies. But I did want to point out to you these transcripts here, including the latest reports from the theater of war that we can't really talk about on YouTube. You'll find that here also on the transcripts. Okay, I think I have Gosha back in the studio. Let me see if I can bring her back up on the screen.
Hello.
Welcome back.
What happened? Did I lose the connection, or did
you froze there and you were gone? So I sent you an email saying, "Hey, can you come back on?" Or did you lose internet? That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at what point was I lost?
You started talking about special operations team up here.
Okay, so you didn't lose much. All I said was that the Hashmalin's team is the special ops guys who go down to Earth if there is a specific task to perform, and that's what they do. Okay. And the other man on the other side.
Wait, let's just go left to right here.
Okay, she's Alanim, and she is a very, 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 very important person on board, because she's actually the leader and the queen. And we have video about the matriarchal system in Taygeta. It's explained. Yes, they do have a queen figure, but it's nothing like what you imagine queen to be on Earth. It's just the equivalent, that's just a word that is kind of equivalent to what we have. However, the queenship, the matriarchy there in their society is totally different. The queen is a model to follow and to inspire the society. nothing, not like here on Earth, where it's an authority figure that imposes rules and controls the society. So
Okay.
she has been on board all this time, and she's also in connection with Taygeta. She's always everywhere. She's very busy. She's very busy in a exopolitical scene. She talks to the Federation, to other races. We don't talk to her much because that's not her task to be talking online.
Right.
But sometimes, if there is something important to communicate, she would come and say it.
Okay.
So that's what she is wearing. Actually, that's a CGI. Actually, the costumes, I didn't mention that their faces are real in most cases, but the costumes are not. That's added.
Okay.
Because their clothes don't come through, actually, unless it's like a totally blank plain shirt. Then maybe it will come through. But if there is something specific, that would reveal too much of their uniforms or something, it doesn't go through. So that's added, what she's wearing, but it's based on what she would wear on special occasions, not every day.
Okay, very good. And the next one here.
Yazhi, that's Yazhi's Varu. A little munchkin, as I call her.
Yeah.
And she's the one that is behind it all, as she would say, and what I also believe, she's behind this whole project. Her mind, her consciousness, her energy is what drives this all and drives us all. And she's the one that has revealed the most, I think, information, also alongside with Aneka, talking about in the past, because right now Athena's Varu is also giving a lot. But anyway, Yazhi is the one who is metaphysical powerhouse. She has all this metaphysical information, but not only, on all subjects. And I must say, and I'll just reveal maybe something I never said before, and maybe sorry, I don't want to offend any of you out there, the team up there, but I cherish Yazhi the most, I think, in all this communication. It's something I cannot negate in me. I feel very close to her.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody else understands, of course.
Okay. I never said that, actually. I always try to be fair to everybody on the team, because I feel connected and I love all of them. And it's a different type of friendship with all of them. But I don't know, with Yazhi, it's something special.
All right. Okay, very good. Now let's move over to this one here.
Yes, and this is Aneka. She's also a dear friend, and she has been actually here the longest time with us since the beginning. Aneka of Temer. She's the most, well, she's the one who, like I said, who has been with us since the beginning, 2017, when we started this contact, even though she was here before. I think she came here in 2016 to the orbit. And she gave also a lot of information. She's an intelligence, so to speak, with human terms, intelligence officer on board. But not only, she has different tasks, as all of them do. They don't specialize just in one thing, mostly, but they multitask. So Aneka right now is taking a little bit of a break from giving information, and Athena, who is the next one, yes, this one, she's now in charge, and she came on the scene in last year, 2021, I guess. I don't know what year we have. So in 2021, she came on the scene in June, and she started communicating more frequently and strongly a few months ago, just as Aneka retreated a little bit. She needs a little bit of a break. And she's a pilot. She's an expert in time travel. In general, they in their society, they do have time traveling technology available, of course, but there are specific task forces who specifically dedicate to that, and Athena's Varu is one of them. But she's also very metaphysical at the same time, and has knowledge on all different subjects.
Okay, very good. Next one to the right here.
And this is Minerva's Varu. This is another one of Varus. I know there are all these Varus. I will have to explain exactly what's the story with that. And it's kind of complicated, but all of you who follow the channel, you will know, you understand. They are just, different versions of the same consciousness, however, in a different type of an avatar and personality coming into one point, basically. Because, there is no time, there is no future, past, and
Right.
time traveling is a phenomenon to them that is common. So you can actually meet your future version, your future self, or your past self, and have a conversation with yourself, with that person, and that person will be sort of you, but also having a distinctive personality. So all of them, they belong to the same Svaru line, the same branch of the tree, so to speak, but they do have different personalities and different age. Like Yazhi Svaru is around 9, more or less, in her body. And Athena around 19-ish there, and Minerva Svaru around 14.
Okay.
And they have different personalities, and sometimes they even get into fights. So because they have different point of view on different things.
Right.
So anyway, let's move on, because we can talk about this for a long time. But I know you want to go to the main topic of the life.
No, people are finding this interesting because again, it's good to put a face to all of these people. So we really appreciate that. And I think for the most part, people will understand still some of the censorship that is required here in order for this to pass through some of the filters. I'm also going to ask you, while you lost connection, I did bring up the transcripts portions on swaru.org for people who actually want to read the communications. I'm going to ask you to maybe repeat also for this new audience here how this communication is happening, and then of course we'll get into our subject matter for tonight. Okay, so there's two last people here on the crew. This tall gentleman here, who's that?
This is Dor Kalel. He's also been here with us for a very long time. He actually gave some conversations with well, he gave conversations. He participated in the conversations with us many times, and we shared the information. Also, he was a pilot.
Yeah.
He was explaining the navigation procedure, how exactly he navigates, and
he was also explaining how he mimics telemetry from normal planes here on Earth so that he can pass through radars and all that. Yeah, I remember those.
And he's also a Hashmalim special ops guy, and he also participates in these different tasks on Earth. Okay. And he also sometimes comes online, and the main one is Athena's Varu and Yazhi's Varu, and sometimes Minerva's Varu. Aneka is taking a break, but every now and then Kalel also appears, and he will communicate whatever he needs to communicate. Men usually stay in the shadow here, and it's women who are in charge of this communication.
Okay, very good. And the last one here.
Well, this is Varu Ferra. She's no longer here, actually, since 2019, but she's the one that began all of this. She's so-called Svaru 9, so-called, because Athena is Svaru 10, Minerva is Svaru 11, and Yazhi is Svaru 12. And these are just names, these are just numbers that are just, just to understand the sequence of how Svarus come about.
Right.
But it must also be mentioned that all of them actually are from different, so to speak, timelines. So
now, her departure had struck a chord with you also. I remember it was difficult at the time. Do you want to share that a little bit with the audience?
Well, it was a strange departure, so to speak, because that was when Yazhi came on the scene in 2019. And the way it was explained to us at the time was that Svaru 9 simply let go of her state, of her being, and got absorbed, so to speak, by Yazhi's Varu. Because Yazhi's Varu is the one that encompasses them all, and she's the one that that all of the others Varus are her, so to speak, and she is all the others Varus, even though they are also distinctive personalities. So the way it was explained to us that Yazhi's Varu is Svaru of Erra as well. So we didn't actually know exactly what happened at the time, but later on we were explained actually that she died. So Svaru 9 died, but you have to understand that death, especially in case of Svarus, it's a bit different. The way Yazhi explained is that she simply made Svaru 9 understand that she's not matter, that she's not her, something, I don't remember exactly, that she's
Right.
she basically transcended. Her body was never found. It was just taken to the ether and was gone.
There's
And
fascinating concepts because even here for humans, we talk about this the nature of humanity being like a triune human, where we have the knower, the doer, and the thinker portions of ourselves. But in the doers, there's 12 doers for each and every one of us. And so this kind of mimics that in a way. So it's very interesting. But these conversations are cool because they make us think a little bit broader as to who we actually are. Like we're here, but we're also living simultaneously as 11 other doers in that
But I do feel that maybe I don't want to go too much into this right now, because I feel that if anybody is new, this will sound a little confusing to the people, and we're like taking it away from the message itself and getting wrapped up in all these stories of these people that are also important. But like I'm saying, if people, your viewers, are new, this might sound a bit maybe confusing, like they will lose interest
right.
if we don't continue to some sort of message.
Then again, we have a lot of woo-woo people on this show, and they're familiar with Percival's Manifest Destiny. So you guys, if you want to go check out that book, we talk about some of the philosophy here of the composition of the human being. This has been talked about for a long time here on the planet. All the scholars are trying to figure this out, and it's kind of interesting to bring the ET components. They have a similar track of understanding of how they express themselves as one point of view of the collective, but also as an individual soul. So that's maybe for another show.
But actually, yeah. And actually, like you are saying, maybe you are right. Maybe I'm wrong saying that this may be confusing to people. But actually, you may be right at that. This makes people be aware of who we really are as a consciousness and as a being, that we actually do have different variants and different points of attentions of ourselves, living out different experiences and even having different points of view, but still being you. Your soul is not just you that you are listening to this right now, but you is such a all embracing and integrated being that encompasses all these other versions of yourself and points of attention and future and past and alternate selves. And so
that's where I was getting with
Yeah.
I love it. That's where I was getting with that, because we are starting as a human race, we're graduating to understand that we live in a transitory reality. It's not a fixed reality. So too is our point of view from our soul perspective and from the collective's perspective also is in a transitory nature for us to be able to follow this transitory reality that we live in. And so I love having these conversations because it really makes you think, because for a lot of people, and again, we're talking about this because we'll eventually get into the holistic society and governance portions here. But in order to understand some of those deeper concepts of who we are and how we can manage ourselves and manage the trajectory of our humanity, our species, we have to understand that a lot of the things we thought were real are in fact not real in one case, or they're in fact constantly changing. And so this idea of holding on to the past is really holding us backwards. And this is why I'm trying to have this conversation here with you today. And this is fabulous. I absolutely love the intro. Okay, so let me go back here again, just to show that to the audience members. The transcript portion of these communications can be found here if you click on this tab here. Now, Gosha, explain very quickly. I know you've done that before, but again, there's a lot of new members here. How do you communicate with these people? It's different, and you keep putting on your YouTube banner channels that this is not channeled information in the sense that you are not interpreting what you're receiving in your brain as some other contacts do. But explain your communication method here.
I do hope I'm receiving something in my brain, like from Yazhi, or I always tell her, please give me more, inspire me, like, send me visions or something so I can understand better your information.
Right.
But the core of that information is actually not coming from my brain. That was a joke, by the way. Yes, let's not mislead the audience here. The information is coming word by word through the online interaction. We are in a live chat and we communicate just like typing. It's not emails, it's not WhatsApp, it's not Facebooking or anything like that. It's just like an online Skype, no, online chatting software where we meet. It's daily for like almost 5 years or 4.5 years, and this is how the information comes through. We normally just chat as friends. It's not the information that is being given all the time. We just chat as friends, and then sometimes topics come out. We ask questions. They will have something they want to say, and it is word by word what you will see in the transcripts. That's what I mean, that it's not coming from my brain. This is specifically what was said by them, word by word. And then maybe if I make a commentary video, that I may add what comes from my mind, understanding this information. But
and that's an important distinction, and that's also an important part of this process, because as humans also, we are now learning to tap into this collective human brain of this planet, and also to what some people would call our higher selves, or what we just talked about, maybe our 11 other doers, in order to obtain non-local information. So we're all doing that. Where do you get that? Where do you get that coffee mug?
That was from there. That was from our friend who is also
that's Robert.
That's Robert. That's Varu Vera. That's Robert, and that's me here. he made the design.
Can people buy those cups online?
No. We don't sell anything.
I'm sure people would love to buy that and support you. Come on.
No, I don't have time to do. I'm so saturated with stuff to publish that I wouldn't deal with that. That was a gift. Anyway, and you see, I lost what you were saying.
No. I think we're done there. We were just talking about the communication method.
Oh yes. Online
it's an important point to make, because as we are evolving in our technology, so too is the contact. Contact's been happening for thousands of years on this planet, and it's been used in many, many different forms. So this is just one other form that is currently available to humans. And, it's part of the process here of growing and getting into the word in French, rapprochement, getting closer to our space brothers and sisters. And this is part also of entering into this age of Aquarius. A lot of the themes there really graduate part of humanity into understanding that we're not alone. And so we're all starting to download that information and those non-local informations. Whether or not you're having direct ET contact, we're doing that through the awakening of our DNA. We're doing that through our dreamscape. We're doing that, again, connecting to our higher selves. So we're moving into a completely different, I guess, human body, in the sense, based of where our solar system is traveling in space, and the energies that are hitting us is triggering a lot of growth and expansion in us. And we know also that the bad guys who run the show here too are trying to delay that, stop that as long as possible, so that they can remain in power using the old systems. And that's what we're seeing now on the planet, and that's why there's so much turmoil right now. So, but with that turmoil also brings the fear, and this is where I want to do this show, to avoid the fear. A lot of people are worried that, oh, JC, if we remove the banking system, well, how will I purchase this, or how will I purchase that? People don't understand that humans lived really well without the central banking model before it existed. It's a relatively new thing in the trajectory of our existence. And now we're finding out that a lot of these systems that were put in place that overlaid the organic humans and the way they govern themselves in these more tribal natures, perhaps in the past, was designed specifically for one reason: one, to control us, and two, of course, to extract energy from this planet. Explain that in your understanding, and then some of the conversations you've had with the team. And then from there, like, just to set that as the stage, we'll get into perhaps some of the ideas we can have now to go back to this, what you call now holistic society or holographic society. Let's have the conversation there, Gosia.
I am not a super expert on this topic. Like I told you before we went on air. And I'm definitely not an expert on the on the economic stuff and the economic and financial side of things. I will share though what we were just recently told. Well, it was a few months ago by Yazhi when she was actually explaining to us, and we have it in 2 videos about the transition into the new societies and about the holistic society. Now, the holistic society is a term that we have referring to the model that of the society that they have in their planets, in their society, in their civilization, and it's the model that on which most of ET societies are based. Which means basically that all members of the society are equal and they have equal access to the information, to everything, and and it is based on the spirituality and on ethics. And there's more to that. We have a specific video just on a holographic society, which that's how we used to call before, but now we change to the holistic society. And in those 2 videos, Yazhi explains if that model could be transferred onto Earth, and what would be required, and what would be the steps to generate that model of the positive and spiritual and advanced society on Earth. And the way she was explaining it, I'm not going to like now explain everything in those videos because they were long and there were 2 of them. But basically, what she's explaining is that it's not a specific political model. It's not like they're gonna come and teach us exact steps how the system works. This is something you need to put there, and then you divide into those parts and technicalities. That's not what it's about. The holistic society is actually based on the mentality of people, and it grows out of the mentality of people from their consciousness, and it is a reflection of the society. And yes, he explains that we don't live in a society, but we are the society we live in. Because she explains metaphysically, if you are a metaphysical lover, metaphysics lover, my English is not so good today, she explains everything is you. Actually, it's not even a reflection of you. There is no outside world as a reflection of you, but it is you. So in the same way, the society we are living in is who we are, and it is what our collective unconscious is. That's why to generate that holistic society, we need to address our mind and our consciousness and our collective unconscious. In this way, it will generate itself. There's no need to learn specifics on how it works. It will just manifest naturally and effortlessly, and it cannot be imposed. That's an important thing, because people would say, well, you ETs, whoever, you know how this works, come and and make it happen for us, create that model for us here. We are ready. It cannot be imposed, because as soon as you impose it, especially with the values of other civilizations that may not reflect the values of this civilization, you destroy the very concept of that idea as you impose it, because it must be generated from the people themselves. It cannot come from the outside. So there are several mental attitudes that she's mentioning we should address in order to regenerate our consciousness, in order to attract that emergence of that holistic society. And one of them is that, what? I cannot hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself because I was coughing. Okay. Just before you add those yes. Mental attitudes, I think it's important for the audience members to understand here too, the reason we're having this conversation about those mental attitudes is because we are on a day-to-day basis, 24/7, being programmed to have a specific mental attitude to contribute to the prison model that we live in now. So there are ways for us to transfer very gently and maybe 1 millimeter at a time our attitude towards who we are, what our governance systems can be, and then suddenly it makes a huge exponential change. But this is why the machine is working so hard through fashion, through TV, Hollywood, all that, to keep us into the old paradigm. Okay, having said that and couch that for the audience, Explain the ones that you remember here in the conversations you've had with the team about how we can change those micro changes here to our mental attitude, and how that can build a better version of ourselves here, because we are the society, as you just said.
Yeah, one of those attitudes that she said she's noticing, that she has noticed on Earth, is that we have this attitude of scarcity of resources. And this is instilled by materialism and by determinism. And this here comes in what you said, that we are conditioned daily, to crave for objects, to need something outside of ourselves, to be happy and to be spiritually fulfilled. And that creates, that idea that, okay, that we need resources, then we need objects, we need things, and that creates the existence of someone who manages those resources,
Right.
and who produces those things for you. So it's simple. It sounds simple, and it sounds like something we already know. But she mentioned that it's going away from those ideas, from the materialism, from scarcity of resources, and looking for happiness, in your spiritual growth, in the experiences, knowing how to learn a new language, not in obtaining a new model of a car, because that's how they control you. That's where they can control you. If you depend on the objects, that's where the control comes in. Because yes, something you want to add?
Keep going. No, keep going. I love what you're saying. Keep going.
Okay, so and then with the materialism that drives the society, spirituality is reduced to only something, the institutions that further guide and control us. So the true spirituality is somewhere, on the side. And here, the people who are listening to us will say, "Oh, I know all this. I'm spiritual." Yes, of course, because we are let's call it the awakened ones. We are the ones, who know this and who are already on a right path, so to speak. But the majority of the society is not, and they are still run by the materialism, by the determinism, and by the victim mind.
Yeah.
And that's another attitude she mentioned that we need to address, to change. We are constantly in this defeatist and deterministic mindset. And as she explained, if you believe you are oppressed, that someone is oppressing you, then that will create the existence of the oppressors. You'll be, thrown into that cycle. The way she explained, yes, we are victims, but we put ourselves in that position through, self-perpetuating ideas, and creating the controllers who then control us, and who need us for their own existence. Anyway, I don't know. For some reason, I am not expressing myself very well today.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. Well, these are okay. And first of all, to be fair, these are higher concepts to develop and to understand, let alone to explain them to other people. And again, this is why we're having the conversation, because Gosha and I were thinking about this before we did the show. And I said, well, how do we better serve this community? And I thought, well, having an open conversation where we admit that we're trying to figure this out. We admit that we understand there's programs and mindsets that have been blocking perhaps our expansions as humans. And having these conversations is thought for the exercise here in order for us to put our attention and our intention into creating a better place for ourselves. And as long as we're in that frequency, then we're not so much programmed by the old, for example, the victimhood mindset and the scarcity programs that keep us locked in that scarcity, as opposed to the actual world of abundance we live in, but that's been obfuscated from us. So we're trying to reach that. And in order to reach that, they usually say, like in your how do you call that in English? I'm thinking about out loud here. You had some shows maybe 2 years ago, and it really made me think. It was all about stellar navigation, and the same thing happens here in my mind. I'm developing this live as I'm talking to you. The stellar navigation, as I understood it, it was about changing the frequency to match the frequency of the location you wanted to go. Not a destination on the map. It wasn't an IP address, or it wasn't coordinates. It was a frequency. So that frequency would bring you in a different time or in a different location if you can change that frequency. So in that same way, if we humans are going to take control of our destination as a human race, we have to change the frequency that we have inside us, because we're a reflection of each other. Like, we are the society that we live in, as you just said. If we change that frequency closer towards that holistic and that holographic society, therefore we will be there, we will create it, as opposed to right
Yes.
now the system is forcing us into a frequency of scarcity, of victimhood mentality and all of that, and it keeps us stuck there. So what do the Taygetians and maybe some other ET races in all of this experience, who've gone through perhaps the that change from living under those old programs into this holistic, what are they saying are the challenges, or what are they saying are some of the tips that maybe could apply here to humanity to bridge that gap between the old programming and getting into that human nature of changing that frequency of where we want to be and the world we want to create? What would they say? Like, or what's your understanding of that, GOSIA?
Well, they did mention that, and this ties in with what I said, that the holistic society generates from the mentality of the people. And if you're if you the state of your consciousness, ethics and morality, as that was explained in a video, that in order for us to generate that advanced state of consciousness, we need to work on spirituality, ethics, and morality, even though that's very general. And that's very, very general and could be very subjective, and that's another subject.
Right.
But let's call it that way. Spirituality, ethics, and morality, general spiritual outlook on life and ethical outlook on life. So they explain that in their society, it happened in the past that certain regressive ideas or concepts try to invade their society. I don't know when it happened exactly, but they have experienced that in their history. And it didn't stick. It didn't stick because of the general mentality of their civilization was not the environment for those parasitical entities to spread. So that's why they insist on removing those attitudes in our minds, in our collective mind, in order to remove the toxic environment in which those regressive and negative entities thrive and manifest and can continue exploiting us.
Right.
That's why, as they explained, as Yazhi explained, we need to, in order to grow into the new holistic civilization, we need to remove the cabal, the regressive hybrids, regressive entities, and all that. But it's not going to happen by some sort of external liberation, someone coming and removing the cabal, but it's going to happen by reprogramming our consciousness and our internal attitudes, so that we do not have that toxic environment anymore that generates and is conducive to the existence of those regressive entities, then exploiting us and putting us further into the circle.
Right. And
So,
that's where we started this show, because there's fear of change. A lot of people have fear of change, and I wanted to have this conversation to remove that fear of change, because it is that very fear also that is creating that toxicity that they feed on and continuously put us in this perpetual loop. And another way to say it for the audience members, because I know this is kind of complicated in a way, but it's like, in a sense, we need to sour the milk. Like, right? So right now they're feeding off of us. We need to change the frequency so that it's no longer desirable or even livable for them to feed off of that frequency. That's what we're
the word they use is that it will create a dominant frequency on Earth, through which the experience on Earth will no longer be conducive to those entities.
Exactly.
So that holistic future advanced society will come out of our new and advanced state of being naturally. It's not going to be imposed, from the outside. It's not going to be introduced as an outside factor. But now, as they explained, just because we are in so many loops and vicious circles with this, it seems just impossible, that we come out of these cycles. They do recognize the importance of some sort of external factor that might stir us in the direction where we could come out of that cycle.
Okay, I just want to add
Yeah.
a little bit here, just to kind of bring some spice to this conversation. In 2001 or two, I remember watching this Dr. Paul Laviolette, and he was talking about this theory of galactic superwaves.
Yes.
A lot of other seers have talked about maybe the sun doing a sneeze, so to speak, again, ejecting maybe a coronal mass ejection that would change the frequency in our area. And we also have the scientists who are now saying that our whole solar system, which is twirling behind our sun, is moving into a different energetic space of call it our universe. And so just that alone is an external factor also, maybe not to make the change, but that would also support this change here. So we do have maybe these energies or this wind underneath our wings here for humanity at this specific time that we maybe did not even have 100 years ago. What are your thoughts on that, and maybe some of your Taigenan teams with respect to some of these external factors that won't change it for you, but that might be supportive or conducive to this change we're looking for?
Then honestly, they never really talk a lot about these types of external factors. I mean, I think we made several videos about that. All I know that solar flashes and all of that, that's definitely nothing to worry about, as people talk about. But yes, definitely there's movement in the galaxy. But I think from what I remember, it's not something like, it's not, okay, I don't want to now exactly ruin the information, but I think it's not something that is totally new. It's been, those kind of movements have always been happening, but now I don't want to, like I'm saying, I don't want to go further into this because I don't want to destroy the information, because I don't remember exactly what they said. But all I can say is that I don't know much about that because they don't talk about that itself a lot.
Well,
What I meant, yeah.
We understand why, because they don't want us to rely on outside factors.
I think
They
so,
want us
yeah.
to do the work personally.
Yeah,
And I
they want
understand
us
the
to do
value in
work.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it's another thing that people would be waiting for as an external thing, to do the
Right.
work for them. Like,
Right.
okay, yeah, that's coming. The wave is coming.
Right.
The wave is going to solve all our problems.
No,
The
I
wave's
meant
not
it.
gonna-
I meant it in the direction that, hey, yes, this is difficult work. We are graduating as humans, but we do have help. Just to say that there is, a little bit.
And
guys,
we do have help. And
Exactly.
now I'll explain how also. Because
Right.
what I meant by the external factors also is that actually they meant mentorship. They meant mentorship given by the humanoid races that are already experiencing, that are already in that state of advanced holistic society.
Right.
So they would know how to make it work, or what values to bring, even though, like I said, they cannot come and impose it on us. It has to come out from us. But now that mentorship, as they explained, that mentorship doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to come again in the form of them appearing and as some sort of gurus and guiding the society. That's not what they mean.
Right.
Actually, the mentorship is already on the way. How? Through the waves of star seeds. Actually, we are the mentors. We are that wave that is trying to bring the dominant frequency onto the collective mind and somehow make the society conducive to the more progressive way of living. So
Right.
we are actually, that mentorship, and this has been happening for decades. Especially since 2000, they mentioned it. Especially
Right.
after 2000, there are special waves of starseeds coming in, but it began long before.
I love here because Nancy Tyrone is saying we are the ones we've been waiting
Yes.
for. Yes, and that's what I mean.
course.
That's where we're getting the help in the form of these starseeds and the new children, the indigo children we're seeing now too, who are coming here with all of these new, and they're being misdiagnosed as ADD and what's the other one there? Oh my God, what's the other one? There. Autism, right? So
Okay.
a lot of, but it's because they have a bigger understanding of the way things are, and they're having trouble communicating and connecting to the way things are currently on the planet. But they're here to hold that light and that information so that we can create that stronger field. And of course, Janine, Julie, and I did this episode 2 weeks ago. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. We talked about these starseed and envoy programs and how they are basically us doing the work. Again, here, in
Yes,
order to affect this planet, you have to be organically born on this planet in order to play this game. Again, these are the laws that we're
yes,
talking about here. We do not want that external savior or that big-handed um, uh, entity that comes here and sweeps at all us for us. We have to do it for ourselves in order for it to stick and
yeah,
to really match
yes.
the frequency of who we are as humans and where we want to go. Not
Yes,
somebody else.
exactly. What
I love it.
as they say, the removing of the cabal, all these regressive influences. It's not anything coming from the outside, removing that, but it's removing the dynamics that forms them. It's
Right.
changing the dynamic that forms them in the first place, and then they will not be compatible with what we are trying to manifest. So that's what we are here for. Yes.
Well, I was going to say on that too. Do you have a pulse? You've done a few videos over the last couple of years about the level of maybe the consciousness on the planet, where we were situated in this ascension program, for lack of better terms, in this last 2 years. As much as it's been difficult to watch and to see, and saddening to see people go with everything that's happening. We don't want to get into that so much, but the point is, because of that, also that did also spark a lot of raising of the consciousness. It did spark a lot of people to wake up who before that were not woken up and who are now engaged in this collective role for humanity. What's the Taigetan team on that? What's their view on maybe the last 2 years as a catalyst for change? Has it been positive overall for humanity? Did we
That's
regress, as some
interesting.
people think?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I have asked that specific question in those words. I would just say that actually going back to that external factor being us, as some sort of a stir in that vicious loophole that the humanity is stuck at on a
Mhm.
planetary level. So, oh my God, I lost myself. That was a long sentence, and that's what happened.
That's okay.
What was my thought? Going on external, us being, yes, okay, yes, us being that external agent. Actually, we 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 contributed to the Great Awakening. It has had effects. I'm not talking about the last 2 years, just in general. But the problem with that, actually, that's honestly sped up the regressive controllers' plans.
Right.
That's why actually we are seeing what happened in the last 2 years. It's actually
That's a
because of
good point.
us doing the work.
Right. That's a
So
good point. Because if you look at their original plans, they were looking at this probably to achieve what they're trying to achieve now by 2030, 2040, 2050. And all of that has been brought forward
yeah,
because of what Gosha is just talking about now. Humanity stepping up to the plate and really rising our consciousness, because he realized there's a line in the sand. And the millisecond we cross that line, it's game over for them, right? And they
yes.
have technology, they have, you know, people who are not from here also supporting them, right? And understanding where that line in the sand is. And so they project and they do these, 50-year plans, 500-year plans to control humanity, looking at some of this technology. We don't have that. But at the same time, we do have help in other ways to help level the playing field. And we do have these energies also supporting this change
Yeah.
right now. That's fascinating. Okay.
But yeah, that's what happened. Yes, that's what happened in the last 2 years is actually the result of the cabal panicking, basically, because of the work that we have done,
Mhm.
and because of the threat that we pose to their
Mhm.
status quo and for their plans. So they are speeding up their evil ways. And
Mhm.
Yazhi, talking about the future, if going back to your question, if they see what happened in the last 2 years as something positive, they are just worried, like, with full honesty, they are just worrying that maybe there is not enough time to that maybe there is not enough time to influence the rest of the society in that positive way, to regenerate the consciousness, to create the holistic society, because of what has been done to the humanity for the last 2 years with the shots and all that, with
Right.
the whatever, on a genetic level, that
Right.
that for those changes to manifest in the society, in order to generate the holistic society, we need at least few generations. and that also goes back to what you were saying, the current state of the generation needs to disappear. The current state of things needs to just be gone, and let's not be trying to fix what we have now, but a completely new model needs to be developed, which will be developed from the regenerated level of consciousness that the starseeds are trying to influence. But for that, they still need few more generations, and honestly,
Or,
scientists are
or,
afraid that may not have time. Yeah.
or there's a
Or
plan. There's a plan B to this, and I'm speaking out loud. Okay, we're
yeah,
having a conversation, folks. I hear what everything you're saying now too. Yes, maybe now we're behind the eight ball, but at the same time, that would be we're behind the eight ball based on the current number of population on the planet and that global consciousness field. Now, I read something in the last couple of days. Some people were mentioning here in the chat, and this is controversial for some people to look at. But they were explaining or espousing how perhaps some of the auto-selective people who might have taken the products in the last 2 years, they took that because they are no longer in a frequency match with this rising consciousness on the planet, and that's their way out. You and I have kind of talked.
yes.
And so if these people, and we're seeing some statistical data now to suggest that perhaps these people have less time remaining on the planet than those who were refused NICs, who didn't take the products, then that recalibrates global consciousness, because the people remaining are the people with the higher consciousness, and that would speed up even more the souring of the milk for the cabal or for the bad agents. So there's also that factor here that you cannot avoid talking about, that could change things very drastically again there. But again, it's difficult because you, me, other people's on my show, we know these people, and some of them have already passed in this last year, and it's difficult as humans to let these people go. But in the bigger scheme of what's happening on the planet, one, there's free will for these people. Their soul contract is not our soul contract. But two, it has to do with the global consciousness and that level of where we're at, energetically speaking, in terms of shutting off the tap for this parasitical vampiric entity that's sucking off our energy. So it's a lot to take in when you think about it. But again, I'm cautiously optimistic. And again, this is the basis for this show. One, to have the conversation, to think out loud about what things could be without this parasite. And how do we go from where we are now, being programmed 24/7, to thinking and modifying our frequency to get to where we want to go? That's priority number one. And that's why we're being distracted with all of these things in mainstream news, so that we don't sit and have the conversation that GOSIA and I are having today. So, man.
Well, actually, what you mentioned, yes, it's another side of the coin, and it has to be considered the fact that the number of people that took the product may be leaving the earth, and actually, and I had this conversation with Yazhi too, it actually could be for the benefit, because we might need actually them gone in order to create something more progressive for those who are left. But actually Yazhi stated that also in a video about the holistic society. Actually, she said yes. She said both sides, the New World Order and also the positive side, holistic society side, both of them need to destroy the current society and the current matrix way of thinking and the matrix people in order to implement new. Because you cannot fill the glass if it's still full. So you need to remove that. And then I ask, and that's actually in my video, if people want to go further into that. And I ask her, like, what do you mean? But the other side is like doing that in a drastic way. But our side, we are going against that. We are fighting against taking people out. And she says yes, because according to us, it's still not ethical to do it that way, and there are other ways of going about it. And our way, Tagetan and Zvaronian way, is going gradually into the transitional society and removing the matrix ideas and matrix people somehow gradually. That was their plan. But the opposite side plan is to do it more drastically, like they're trying to do. But anyway, we'll see. Actually, that also could be a point. Like we're talking about the Federation and why they are permissive with all this, not permissive, or whatever. Actually, also they could be maybe permissive with what's happening, because they might believe it is something that might be actually beneficial for the future of the society here. We don't know. There's
We
so
don't
many
know.
layers here and angles.
Yeah, I know. And it's always way more complicated than we
Yes.
make it out to be. There's all of these different levels. And as you can see, guys, as we're Gosha and I are chatting out loud here, we're struggling also to understand all of these different layers, because every time you scratch into a layer, oh, there's another layer, there's another layer. Let me add one more there too. This understanding of global warming, more and more, that narrative is also falling apart. We understand that there is this solar minimum, and to what extent this solar minimum might affect food crop production on the planet still has yet to be determined. But the reason we need to pay our attention to is because the mainstream media, of course, is telling us to look over here with the global warming. We need to pay attention and also look on that other side. And some of the thinkers out there who are looking at this too are also saying, oh, maybe also in the grand scheme of things, the removal of the people who took their products also might alleviate some of the stress on our food production systems during this solar minimum. So in that sense also, it might be beneficial, not just for raising the global consciousness of the population by removing some of the old frequencies, but also here on relieving stress on some of that food production temporarily during this solar minimum. Have you talked to the Taigerians about this at all, and about the food shortage? I know this last 2 years you've talked about how the supply chain was being affected because of the cabal, and they were engineering some of these shortages. But talk also about the earth changes themselves. What do the Taigerians see there?
No, we didn't talk about that much.
Okay.
About the earth changes and all that. No, they haven't mentioned that. Just also remember that sometimes, as I always say this, whatever they say, it also comes out of what we ask. If I don't ask a question, there will be no answer, perhaps. Right. So sometimes, whatever is in our videos and our transcripts is driven by what we ask, and sometimes we are limited by our own mind and knowledge and our interests.
Okay.
So no, we haven't talked specifically about that, but I just want to talk about a little bit about what you said, that you're cautiously optimistic and this could be beneficial. Yes, and that's why we are still here, and that's why they are still here, because they still believe this could turn around, and it's very important to still work towards the positive goal. But there is definitely a war of two great forces of souls, and clashing today.
Yes.
As he explained, this is a spiritual battle, and is only like reflecting itself on the physical as a current chaos.
Right.
And this is definitely happening. And as she also explained, as starseeds, our role, she says that all these MK Ultras, clones, regressive hybrids, they are like the guard dogs for the sheep. They are there to maintain, the sheep where they are. And we starseeds, we come and open the gates at night. That's our goal. That's our work here. That's our task. Right. And the outcome, no one knows. It could go both ways. I'm also cautiously optimistic. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I always say this, if I didn't believe that it's possible to turn this into the positive direction. But in the end, and I always say this too, no matter where it goes, you need to do what you feel is correct. And battling for the positive future for the human souls is what I believe is correct for me, for Sbaronians, for Taigetans. And that's what we'll continue doing for now.
I love it. And I'm the same way with you. I'm like, no, it's the destination. It's what I understand to be my soul mission also. And I have to be in authenticity and online with that. And once that is, I think a lot of people in this chat are also realizing, I saw a few people commenting, oh, I didn't know it was a starseed until recently, and all these things. We're understanding now how we're all part of this community. And as you just said, we're opening the doors for a lot of people. And it's exciting. And I think although I'll admit that on some days it feels difficult. You see that news item one day, you feel that gut punch, you're like, oh yeah, man, it's not going well today. But again, overall, if I add all those days up and all those hours up, I'm still cautiously optimistic. I see things that lead me to believe that we're on the right track. And regardless of where we get to that too, I'm on the same page with you. I'm on the right track because I'm doing what I feel is right. And I think if everybody did that on the planet, can you imagine how quickly things would change if everybody was in alignment with what they think was right, as opposed to following maybe the programs on TV, the narrative of the regressives. Things would change very, very quickly.
So yeah, so just to say one more thing here. Yazhi explained that the transition toward this holistic society as it is in their planet, in their worlds, is not possible as a society is right now. But she is talking about the transitional societies and communities and all that. And I even asked her, like, what about those, like, local communities that people are trying to grow food? And is that the way? Is that what they should be doing to be independent from the matrix? So Athena Yazhi, he responded, and she said, well, that's definitely, a reflection of your inner change reflected outwards. You are manifesting, your inner perception of things. So that's a good step. And if everybody was doing that, of course, that would be that would contribute to the overall change. However, there are still challenges with those types of communities, because they still need to depend somehow on the financial system, in some ways. So they're not totally independent. And but she says that the sum of the global change arises from the local changes on the local level. So doing those local changes is definitely important. However, she also mentioned, it will only have the effect for the local community. And the ideal goal would be to do something on a global level. And here I said to her, well, for me, it sounds difficult to do something like that on a global level. And then she said something interesting. She said, well, for you, it sounds difficult because, you on Earth, you only have one planet. So organizing something on a global level seems so overwhelming. But for us here, for example, they have 4 planets. Doing something on a planetary level is very easy. And some societies and civilizations, they have multiple planets, and they have the same system operating multiple planets. So she made that comment saying, don't think that it's too much. It is doable. That's again our terrestrial mind thinking that doing something on a global level is too big.
Right.
But do start locally. That's for sure. That's an important step, because it's your internal change reflecting outwards. That's what she said.
I love it. We're getting a lot of great comments in the chat. People are like, wow, we love this conversation, JC. This is one of your best interviews.
Really? And I'm feeling like I'm not expressing myself properly.
No, you're doing great.
In the beginning, I couldn't.
No, you're doing great. And I think overall, again, this is going to spark the interest of a lot of people to think about these things. And I love what you're saying here too, because every little step we take individually adds to that collective. And at first it might look like an overwhelming task, but as you're saying, these local gardens, everybody having their own greenhouse, slowly but surely disconnecting from all of those structures, not just to be self-sufficient. Right now, part of it is being self-sufficient, but it's also building towards, and this is where I think you're making the point, and where the Taoists are making the point, is having this holistic view, not just the local communities, but as a whole for the planet, how we can bring all of this together. So really the sky is the limit in our imagination, as long as we're putting the intention and the attention to these concepts right now, and understanding again that every millisecond that we don't bring our attention there, and this is a critical point, my humble opinion, every moment and every millisecond where we're not pushing the needle towards where we want to go as humans, the system here is designed to push the needle the other way to control us. So you have to understand that if you're standing still, you're actually going backwards. That's the whole point of this conversation, and pushing the boundaries of our understanding, our knowledge, admitting that we don't know things, and asking for help, and having these conversations in the community, because it adds way more and it has so much more impact. And as we're seeing, and as Gosha was just saying, in the last 2 years, we've seen a huge reaction from the other side because we've made so much of an impact already. They've accelerated their plans to the point where they look like idiots. None of these politicians want to be doing what they're doing now because it's political suicide, but they're doing it because that whole system is supporting them. And if that system dies, they die. So they understand that for them, it's do or die. And that's why it's crazy, a crazy shit show. If you look at what's happening right now, they're panicking. So again, that's why I'm cautiously optimistic, because again, when those guys panic, they do things that we might not expect or accept, of course, also. But again, generally speaking, Gosha, with you and with the other people I'm watching and what I'm getting on if I do the average of how I feel when I take a pulse, I still feel cautiously optimistic. And I'm so grateful to be able to do these conversations with you, and so grateful to be able to watch your content and to share this with the live stream audience. Gosha, we're already an hour 10 into this. Man, this has been really fast.
Yeah.
Is there anything you're thinking that you would like to share with the audience also before?
No, just one sentence I want to add to what you were saying about how what we were doing the good job, and they sped up their plans. And I just want to say that I think it's actually a compliment to us and to our work and to our presence here on Earth, the way and the length they are going to speed up their plans. Actually, in their sorry, I'm listening to myself here. Wait 1 second.
Okay.
Actually, in the extent, I think I'm hearing myself through you.
Okay, let me mute myself again. Just keep going, Joe.
Yeah. I think in the extent of the efforts that they are developing to destroy the society and to go against us, we can see us reflected and our range of influence that we have. Because the more influence we have, the more they're gonna try to defeat us and come up with all these plans and distractions. And so distractions. So I think in a way it is a compliment to us and to our presence here to see the mess that this place is at, because like I'm saying, it is a tribute to the range of our work here. They wouldn't be doing what they are doing if it wasn't for us here doing our part. So in that sense, it is something, it could be something, it could be viewed in the optimistic way.
Right.
However, the outcome, totally the final outcome of this war, because that's what it is a war, we don't know yet. And but whatever, I actually believe that whatever happens is whatever is. And I believe there's order actually in everything. And actually there is no destruction for the soul, for the consciousness. Everyone is where they are supposed to be according to their frequency. So in the end of it all, we are performing, these tasks, and we are fulfilling our roles, self-imposed, of helpers or whatever. But in the end, everything will be as it is, and everyone will be where they're supposed to be according to their frequency, and where they are meant to be, where they are supposed to be according to who they are.
Right. I love that too, because for me, the outcome of the war, of course, I wish to win the war. I'm fighting this war because I want to win it and I want to believe it. But really what matters at the end of the day, the outcome is that I fulfill the highest potential of my soul evolution in this particular embodiment. That's how I see it. If I can wake up every day and say, yes, I'm on track for that. And if the audience members can say, yes, we're on track for that. And holy shit, that's what it's all about.
Actually, that's a very strange, actually, feeling that I have, because I never said that, but I will say it. Maybe it will sound cold, and maybe it's not exactly that, but I don't really care if we win or not. Now let me just say it. I do care, of course, but on some level of me, I am not doing this to win, and I do not really seriously care where the humanity goes. I know I want to confuse a lot of people with this, because why am I doing what I'm doing? But I will have to go deeper into what I'm feeling about this. It's just that on some deeper level of my core, I feel detached from where this ends. And that gives me peace, and I can work with some sort of serenity, with passion, determinism, with the determination and full will to take on the cabal and all that. But at the same time, I am at peace, and I know that I'm just fulfilling, like you said, the highest calling in me, and that's it.
That's it.
And the end will, and the rest will resolve itself as it's supposed to be resolved. And it's not in my control. I can only control my own actions and my own contribution to what's happening. And that's it.
Okay. I was going to ask you for your last words of wisdom, but there it was right there, folks.
I don't have any more.
Rewind the last 2 minutes, folks, to watch what she said again. I totally agree with you. A lot of people in the chat are like, yes, I know exactly what she means. Yes. And that piece, obtaining that peace is such a big part of all of this, because again, we are in this weird spiritual war. There's a lot of turmoil, and finding that peace, but that joy of also being on mission and on track for you, for your soul evolution. I think it's what it's all about. And I'm looking at the gratitude and the comments in the chat, and I think people get it. There's a lot more of us than we think, and that's an important part. Maybe I'll leave you on this. There's a lot more of us than we think. We're trained by the mainstream media to think that we're the small fringe minority, as Prime Minister Trudeau said about a month ago. But it's growing really fast, Mr. Trudeau, and everybody else around the world. You are on notice. Folks, for more of that amazing wisdom and more from the Tagetin team, please visit Cosmic Agency here on YouTube, the English version. You can also find the Spanish version at Agencia Cosmica. And finally, if you guys are looking for the transcripts also of all of these amazing communications, you can find that at swaru.org. This was another episode. Wait, was he good?
Yes, for uploading all the transcripts. He's the one doing the job.
Well, thank you so much, Matthias. And if you're there, say hello to the audience. Audience members, say a big thank you to Matthias for all the work he does to support here. This
and also the Miko, his brother, who is doing the website. I have to give the recognition.
Oh no, did we lose Gosha? Gosha, I think you're frozen again. Guys, give me a 5x5 if you can still hear me. I think we just lost Gosha's feed. She was just thanking Miko also for all the work he does. Love this show. Give me a 5x5. Thank you, guys. Am I still on? Is it me that lost? Jenny says thank you, Matthias. 5x5. Okay, I'm still here. Okay, I think we we lost Gosha again. All right, guys. At any rate, this was an episode, of course, of Cosmic Agency. Please remember to come here at Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic 3. If you love this episode and you want to see more of this content, please do subscribe here on our third backup channel. I love you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.